Yes, the time has come for me, Andy T, to give my list of my top 10 favorite movies of 2022. What a joy. So, couple of things to know beforehand. First of all, I haven't seen every movie that's come out this year. I did expand my range though. I did see and review a couple of movies that I wouldn't have normally. But even so, I haven't seen everything. So if you're wondering why Babylon or Puss in Boots isn't on this list, it's because I didn't see it and review it. This list will comprise of movies that I have reviewed. Secondly, if you don't agree with this list, which odds are that will be the case, there will be at least one movie on this list where you're like, I wouldn't put that in that spot. I know that and I accept that. In fact, I love it. After all, opinions are what makes us human. All I ask is that you keep your comments on the positive side. Can we do that? I ain't trying to start World War III here, so let's try and keep it civil. Cause I'll tell you, civil, actually positive conversations about movies is like my favorite thing. I love to talk about this stuff. So without any further delay, let's get into this list. My top 10 movies of 2022. Actually, you know what? One more little thing. I do want to give an honorable mention to my favorite musical score of the year, since the movie it's from is not on this list. That is Don't Worry Darling. Best musical score I've heard this year, but since this is just an honorable mention, I'm gonna move right along. So, starting this list at number 10, my 10th favorite movie of 2022, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Yeah, now you should know what kind of list you're getting into. Look, this list is objective. This is my personal favorites. I grew up playing Sonic games, and this movie delivered what I would want to see in a live-action Sonic movie. We got Sonic being Sonic. He's going on his adventure with Tails, an adventure which very much felt like an old-school Sonic game. Knuckles the Echidna, voiced by Idris Elba. Talk about unexpected casting that ended up really working. And let's all be honest with ourselves, one of the best credit scenes we've gotten this year. There is that too. I can't wait to see what comes next for this cinematic franchise. Alright, at number 9 we got The Northman. I saw this movie a little later than I usually would, but I heard it was great, so I went to go see it, and once it was over, I was like, yep, it was great. This is probably my favorite thing that I've seen Alexander Skarsgård in yet. Anya Taylor-Joy is in it. Not much more needs to be said after that. The violence and brutality, this is the most brutal movie I've seen this year by a clear mile. But with all that, it's a solid revenge epic. It took itself seriously, and it's a beautiful movie to boot. If for nothing else, I should probably watch more of Robert Eggers' stuff, because this movie is worth remembering. Alright, coming in at number 8, this movie's probably going to be number 1 on the list of some people I know, because this is one that everyone talked about when it came out. Yes, I'm talking about Everything Everywhere All at Once, the topic of many a discussion I've had this year. Look, as great as the whole multiverse adventure was in this film with all the trippy effects, I really do gotta give all sorts of props to Michelle Yeoh. Cause she really showed us in this film that even though she has been around for decades as a seasoned actress, her career is showing no signs of slowing down. Cause she was awesome in this movie. Stephanie Soo was awesome in this movie. Ki Hai Kwan was awesome in this movie. It had cool action, it had some pretty good comedy, but above all else, it had great emotion and heart. That ending just really stuck it for me. I'm like, yeah, this movie is worth all the hype. So great job to the Daniels on directing this. Number 7 is Turning Red, which I am kind of surprised that of the 2 movies that Pixar released this year, this is the better one. This is the movie that really brought me back to that time of middle school. Celebrity crushes and angst. If you think it might be unrelatable because it's about a teenage girl, you are wrong. I feel like everyone can relate to this movie. It's got a great story with the family dynamic. The animation is really interesting. Yeah, this movie was a pretty good surprise. Who doesn't like that? In fact, there are a couple of surprises on this list. But for my money, Turning Red's just more Pixar gold. Okay, number 6, this is the one where you're gonna be like, oh yeah, this is the one that only he would talk about. This is probably gonna be on no one else's list, but I'm a fan of it, I knew it was coming, and it technically does count as a movie, Heathers the Musical. One of my 2 favorite stage musicals of all time. It was filmed and put on the Roku channel this year. Yeah, I'm a huge Heathers fan. I've loved it for a couple of years now. I love the story. I love the music, the songs. This could have been number 1 on my list. But the fact that it's this specific recording of this specific cast in West End, and there were some things that I did find imperfect comparatively speaking to better versions of Heathers the Musical that I've seen or heard, that's what puts this at number 6. It used to be higher though. And of course, that doesn't change the fact that I will continue to love Heathers for the rest of my life, and it's absolutely deserving of a spot on a top 10 list of mine. So number 6 it is. Alright, number 5, we are at the halfway mark. Now we start getting into the ones that I knew I was gonna love this year. Like, yeah, I knew this movie was gonna be somewhere on this list. It was a certainty. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. This is the best feature film that Marvel Studios made this year because it dealt with a lot of heavy, real shit. Starting with, but not limited to, Chadwick Boseman's passing. And of course, on top of that, the action is awesome. I loved seeing this in IMAX. The standouts to me were Dominique Thorne, Letitia Wright, Tenoch Huerta, and of course, Angela Bassett, who was rightfully nominated for the Golden Globe for her performance as a supporting actress. She should win. Definitely one of my favorite performances of the year. Holy shit, yeah, that's definitely worth remembering if for nothing else. But it all comes back to the fact that this movie is just plain awesome, and a great way to round out the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Phase 4. And speaking of 4, coming in at number 4 on my list, another movie that surprisingly isn't number 1. I really thought it could have been. But yeah, Avatar: The Way of Water. Oh my god, talk about IMAX being awesome. IMAX 3D with HFR, only James Cameron could pull that off right. Years and years of continual stress and delays for this film, it all paid off for the better. Cause not only is this the most gorgeous movie I've seen in a long time probably, but the characters are just the best. This is the continuing adventures of Jake Sully and Neytiri and everyone else on Pandora that fans of the first one wanted to see and deserved. The new characters, their kids, all relatable, and now some of my favorites. The story took it to where it needed to go, and I am so glad that this movie is making a lot of money. Over $1 billion now, I am pretty sure that we will get all of those sequels, not just one more. Awesome, can't wait. Alright, number 3, this is where we get to the real heavy hitters. This movie was the biggest surprise of the year for me. I love a great surprise. I mentioned that in my review, I called this movie a great surprise, and it turns out no movie after this surprised me as much as The Black Phone did. In fact, the real surprise is that not as many people are talking about this movie as I thought there would be. This movie is awesome. This is the kind of horror that I can really sink my teeth into and watch all the time. Like, this is definitely a movie that I will be revisiting every year from now on. Just like 10 Cloverfield Lane. Cause it's suspenseful, it's realistic to a degree, and then when supernatural stuff starts happening, it does it in the most realistic kind of way. With subtlety. Yeah. And of course, a fantastic performance from one Ethan Hawke. Mason Thames, Madeline McGraw, I want to see more work from both of those kids, cause they were both fantastic too. And if you haven't seen this movie yet, you are sleeping on it. It's streaming on Peacock now. I highly suggest you check it out. If you don't have Peacock, just watch the kill count on dead meat for God's sakes. Just watch the movie, cause it's worth it. Coming in at number 2, this was almost number 1. That's the nature of being second place. But for my money, I got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Man, this movie really hit home with me. I love a great animated movie. This is the best animated movie I've seen this year, obviously. And before you say anything, no, Avatar is not an animated movie. But Pinocchio, it had great heart, great characters, awesome animation. Sure, the stop motion gave it an edge because I love stop motion, I always have. But this one did it right. Like, I was shocked when I realized that I liked this movie more than Wendell and Wild. I love the songs, the music as a whole, the direction of it. I mean, it's Guillermo del Toro for crying out loud. More often than not, he will give us a movie that at the very least is memorable as all hell. And that ain't bad. And now we have come to number 1, my number 1 favorite film of 2022, Top Gun: Maverick. Every year before I make my top 10 movies video, I make sure to rewatch the movie at the number 1 slot to make sure it is still number 1. This movie, not only is it still absolutely number 1, but it actually was my second time watching it since theaters. And guess what? I loved it even more than the first time I saw it in theaters. That being said, this is one of those movies that you have to go see in theaters with the best sound system available, because we're talking about jet aerial combat, people. Holy shit, and the fact that it's all practical just makes it even better. So you got a nice big silver screen, you got a great sound system, and you got awesome visual effects. That is what we call a triple threat, my friends. And to add even more to that, the emotional story between Maverick and Rooster is literally the best thing we could have gotten out of a 36 years later sequel to Top Gun. This movie actually did have the best acting I've seen from Tom Cruise in a while. And of course everybody else, Jennifer Connelly, Miles Teller, Glenn Powell. He's a real up-and-comer. I just love everything about this movie. And really, it served as a reminder of how great the movie theater going experience really is. It was the best example of that this year, and that is why it takes the number 1 gold medal for me. Again, if you haven't seen it yet, I do highly recommend it. You are sleeping on that. It's streaming right now on Paramount Plus with the IMAX enhanced aspect ratio, which I did not see coming. That is awesome. Watch it. Alright folks, so that is it. We're here already. Wow. Those are my top 10 favorite movies of this year, 2022. Truth be told, I've seen like over 40 movies this year. I probably could put together a top 10 worst list, but then I would have to do that every year, and honestly, I don't see that many movies that I've heard are terrible anyway. Me being me, I just go see the movies that I want to see. And besides, I like just focusing on the positive. Who knows though, maybe one day I'll do it. Never say never. So as always, I would love to know what your top 10 favorite movies of the year are. If you want to list more or less than 10, that's totally fine. I'm flexible like that. It's not like I'm gonna make a rule. And I gotta thank you all for a fantastic 2022. This was the year I hit 2,000 subscribers. I've been doing this for 8.5 years. 2,000 subscribers after 8.5 years is not the fastest growing subscriber count. But you know what? As long as I still get to do this as an amazing hobby of mine, I got nothing to complain about. So big thanks, of course, to all 2,000 of you. I love you all. Happy New Year, and we're looking forward to 2023. There's some good stuff coming. There's also some stuff that might not be good, but I'm totally curious about anyway. 2023, it's gonna be interesting. So, your top 10 favorite movies of 2022. Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace!